so let's start from the basics, right? So for anyone who has a question with regards to job search, how do I approach job search?
I feel a lot of job seekers, they see themselves as job seekers, which is fine, from your perspective. But from the company's perspective, from an organization's perspective, you are a solution provider. They're looking for someone to provide a solution for a problem that they're looking to solve. So this is a mindset shift a lot of job seekers need to make is, I'm a product. I'm a product. I'm a solution provider. I'm someone who provides solutions. And that'll give you the right context on how you're approaching your search, taking a more proactive approach, and how you're marketing yourself as well. And you need to focus on the fact that you provide solutions versus the fact that you're looking for a job.
So let's talk about, the job search process in itself. What are some key things with your experience in recruiting and hiring and all that, and human resources in general? What are the key things that a professional should have regardless of your job situation?
So just because a lot of people make the mistake of they get their job, they're working, they're fine, everything's good, everything's well, and they step away from LinkedIn, they step away from their network, they don't need to go to the networking events anymore, they forget about their network, and then suddenly something like COVID hits, and next thing you know, you haven't been nurturing your network, you haven't been increasing your presence and your visibility into your industry, and you're basically back at ground zero. So one of the major things all of the job seekers need to think about is think in terms of your career. You need to be developing your brand, developing and being a visible brand and product in your industry. You need to be seen at every major industry event in your space. You need to be an expert in your space. You need to be speaking about your knowledge, your experience, and your expertise. You need to be building your connections and nurturing your existing connections. Now, the other mistake, a lot of job seekers make is depending solely on online applications. When what you need to be doing is using that as just one channel. You need to be using every channel available to you. Professional networking, sending direct cold emails, cold messaging on LinkedIn, expanding your network on LinkedIn, virtual networking events, right? Virtual because of this whole COVID thing, and building out your connections and using every avenue available to you, folks. Don't depend solely on online applications. That's another mistake.
All right, awesome. So talking about LinkedIn right now, because when people say they don't have LinkedIn right now, like in 2020, you don't have a LinkedIn account. Dean, tell us, from the eyes of the recruiter and hiring manager, how do you sort of look through, what do you look out for on a LinkedIn profile when you want to approach a candidate?
In terms of what appeals on the LinkedIn profile, for IT recruiters, heavily driven by technical skill sets, right? And technologies, frameworks, and those aspects, those are things that really might capture the IT recruiters, attention. But not just that, because because it's based on the requirements, right? Because the client might say we want someone who has experience in retail applications or banking applications, or those other variables as well. So it's dependent entirely on what really the requirements are for the role. But your LinkedIn profile definitely has to be keyword rich. So you need to a lot of people make the mistake of having the bare minimum on their profile, and all you have is your name, the title, the dates. You might as well not be on LinkedIn at all, folks. You gotta put some work into your profile, each position, because that helps your it helps your LinkedIn profile be more keyword rich. Now, the other thing is, of course, recommendations really count a lot, especially if it's from a manager or someone who supervised you or managed you. Any LinkedIn recommendations from people at the director level or VP level, and those are always very powerful. And if you worked at a great, well-known brand, that always captures attention, right? Some people like to hide their companies, and maybe there's maybe you have some disclaimer issues there. But outside of that, you should definitely take advantage of whatever your experience you have, and also make sure you mention your KPIs, metrics, actual results you achieved, because you don't want your profile to read like a job description, right? And same thing goes for your resume. Your resume should not read like a job description. A lot of people only mention tasks, responsibilities, and duties. And what you need to do is you need to connect those tasks, responsibilities, and duties with actual end results, ROI, time savings, cost savings, whatever, all that stuff, which shows, okay, wow, this person has worked at this company. These are the skill sets. These are the technologies they work with. But these are the results that they achieved. And hey, maybe they can potentially get these results from my client. So that would capture the attention of the recruiter.
Some job seekers are also scared that they shouldn't be too visible on LinkedIn because they're scared their employers would think, oh, is this person trying to get another job or something? So, so how does one, a job seeker, right? I'm currently in a job, but I'm seeking another job, right? I want something better. I use LinkedIn to achieve this goal, basically.
you've really been nurturing your nurturing your personal brand and looking at it from a career standpoint versus a job standpoint,
Yeah.
you would already at this point, you'd be networking already, you'd be attending these events, you'd be visible in your industry, visible in your space, because you're already doing that. You're already making yourself visible in ways that don't come across as searching for a job, right? Attending these industry events. And also in regards to posting, I would say you can still post things without coming across as someone who's looking for work, right? I mean, I post all the time about recruitment and job search stuff and all of that, but I'm establishing myself as an expert in my space. It doesn't necessarily mean, or it doesn't come across as me looking for work. But other than that, like I said before, be involved in your industry, attend industry events, and make yourself visible, right? Without coming across as someone who's actively looking.
Let's talk about something with regards to one of the key questions is, tell me about yourself, or walk me through your resume, or tell me about your career journey so far. When you ask that question, what are you really looking to hear? And what's the best way to answer that question?
So this comes down to, folks, and it depends on who you're speaking to. If you're speaking to a recruiter versus an actual hiring manager, if you're speaking directly to a hiring manager, what they're looking for is something that really shows them or captures their attention in terms of how you can potentially solve, or help them with whatever project they're working on. That's what's going to capture their attention, right? If it's for a recruiter, it might be something very similar, like something based on the requirements of their client or their organization that shows why you can potentially be someone who can help them out with whatever problem or issue they're facing. On that initial phone call, before you even get to the interview stage, folks, you need to be asking some probing questions so that you understand what the core pain points are for the position and why they're looking to hire. So that way, when you're at the interview and when someone asks you, so tell me about yourself, you know exactly what they want to hear, because they've already told you on the initial phone call, the phone screening, what they're looking for in an ideal candidate, right? So this is where on that initial phone call, you need to do some probing. You need to find out, okay, what captured their attention about your resume that made them want to give you a phone call? Why is that? Why are you looking to hire at this time? Why is this project a priority for you at this time? These are questions all of you need to be asking on that initial phone call, so that when you're at the interview and the hiring manager asks you, so tell me about yourself, you can tell them exactly what they need to be hearing about your background and your accomplishments.
Yeah. Another question is with regards to speaking about salary, right? So, a lot of times the recruiter would say, what are you looking to, or what's your asking price, or what do you want for this role? And it's a struggle for a lot of people. Maybe as an immigrant, it's their first job, and they want to really get that job, and they don't also want to sound like they're overpricing themselves. What's the best way to answer that money question?
You have to do your research. You have to conduct your research. You have to be well informed about what your value is relative to your skill set and your experience. No one else can do this for you. This is where you have to do some legwork. And there are various resources online where you can do this. I know some agencies, they publish average salaries, and then you have other, these institutions that provide those salaries. Especially in your space, check out, I know there's, certain institutions for specific fields and industries that might provide this information as well. So do your research. That's how you're going to be able to figure out where you can position yourself based on your experience and your skill set. Now, in terms of the other part, I know you mentioned, which is very important. I know people, when they're new to the country, they think, oh yeah, I should position myself lower and this and that. But I want to caution everyone who's thinking that way. And I'm not saying be greedy or anything. The research part is important, because you can then ask for something very realistic, relevant to your skill set. But keep in mind, just the fact that you're new to the country does not mean you need to lower your salary expectations. If you're solving $1 million problem, it's still $1 million problem.
Yes.
Right? I mean, the fact that you're a newcomer does not reduce the problem to $500,000 problem. That's the only reason why you would ever lower your rate or your salaries, if the problem is smaller. It's to a lesser degree or something. But no, the problem remains the same, but they need your skill set to solve the problem. If you're applying for a role, you have the right experience, you've done your research, you're able to confidently show and explain why you're the right person for the role, there's no reason for you to lower your salary. As long as it's reasonable, it's based on market research, it makes sense. You're not asking for something ridiculous. There's no reason for you to reduce your salary just only because you're a newcomer. That doesn't make any sense.
Talk about the Canadian experience, right?
Yeah.
This almighty Canadian experience, and having foreign experience and not being able to get into the perfect role. And a lot of people in the US as well that I work with also say they face those challenges with regards to having foreign work experience and then moving to North America and struggling. So let's talk about that work experience part. How do you handle that Canadian work experience struggle?
So this goes back to what I said before, folks. Focus on what you do have. The fact that you're new to Canada, you can't do anything about not having Canadian experience. You can't get a certification that says, yeah, Canadian experience. There's nothing like that, right? so again, there's no point. Yeah, I mean, that would be great, right? Like if there was something like that. It's like, yeah, I got the Canadian certification. So, but yes, folks, look, don't worry about things that you do not have. Same principle, exact same principle. So the Canadian work experience thing, if you don't have the Canadian work experience thing, hey, I mean, you no use talking about that. You don't have that. So focus on what you do have. And look, and other thing I want to mention is keep in mind at which point they mention this Canadian experience thing. Because if they call you on the phone, they have a conversation with you, and then they say, oh, we need someone with Canadian experience. Guess what? They probably knew that before they made the phone call. So something about your profile caught their attention. Right. So you need to put their attention on what caught their attention about your profile and your resume.
Yeah.
So if someone says, "Hey, Dean, we're looking for someone with Canadian experience. Sorry about that, but appreciate your time on the phone," I would say, "Hey, I totally get that, Mr. and Mrs. Recruiter, and you're right. Absolutely, I don't have Canadian experience. But let me ask you this: what prompted you to give me a call? Like, what caught your attention about my resume that prompted you to give me a phone call? Put the attention on that, folks." And then the recruiter is going to say, "Oh, well, Dean, we really like how you worked in the retail industry. That caught my attention." And then that's where you need to probe. You need to probe and investigate, folks. Ask them why. Why is that retail experience important? Okay, great. Why else? What else caught your attention about my profile and my resume? What else? Why? Why is that important? Keep asking these questions. And then you ended off by saying, "Hey, look, Mr. and Mrs. Recruiter, I totally understand I don't have the Canadian experience, but it sounds like I do match most of the requirements for the role. So given that, Mr. and Mrs. Recruiter, allow me the opportunity to at least show you why I'm still a good candidate, a strong candidate, despite not having that one thing, the Canadian experience. Allow me the opportunity to show you why I'm still a good candidate."
Dean, do you have any tips for salary negotiation?
Keep in mind that, one of the risks in providing a range, like let's say this candidate gave the range of, I'm looking for 60 to 65. If you're giving a range, folks, make sure you're happy with the lower end of the range, because both parties see two different things. When you say a range, like I'm looking for 60 to 65, the organization might be thinking of 60K and you're thinking of 65, right? So there's differing perspectives there. My point is, make sure if you're providing a range, you're happy with the range. Now, going back to let's say you provided a specific range and they come back with something lower. The issue is not let's say you wanted 65, they came back with 60K. Like the problem is not the 65K. What you actually need to convince them of now is not 65K. You got to convince them of 5K. You need to focus on the difference. So you need to kind of do some probing, investigating, figure out what they like about you, why they want to put an offer on the table in the first place, and then you need to sell them on and justify that additional 5K. Because 60K is accounted for. You got the 60K. It's just that additional 5K that you need to work on now. One more thing, if I could add, I know, and yeah, that's a great point. Now another thing that I have used in negotiations on behalf of candidates is put the organization's focus on the size of their problem.
Yeah.
Right. Because that makes you want them think if they're going to complain about numbers, let them complain about a big number. Right. So and what I mean by that is, look, you need to ask your point of contact. Mr. and Mrs. Hiring Manager, I understand you want to, negotiate on the salary. You came back with 60K. But let me ask you this. How much has it been costing you not having the right person in this seat to deal with this project? What has this been costing the project, the team, the department, the company?
Yeah.
Right? And what is the size of this problem? You need to have them put an actual dollar figure on it. If it's $1 million problem, guess what? You asking for an additional 5K is like nothing. And they're going to be like, yeah, you know what? It's just 5K. Yeah, let's Yeah, exactly. You could ask for 50K, but hopefully all of you understand what I'm saying. Like, put the focus on the real problem, because the reason why they're hiring you is because they have a problem big enough that they can justify setting aside, whatever budget to bring someone on to help solve the problem.